to make child killing a criminal crime in the year 374. Later, when you go through history, 1600s in Paris, they found another guild of abortions. Illegal abortions were going on all over, not just Paris, but Milan, Madrid, London. They were all involved. Europe had descended into a pagan world. But who did he send? St. Vincent de Paul. He found the different organizations who were doing this. Along with Ignatius of Loyola, Thomas of Villanova, Luis de Marillac, John Eudes, Charles Borromeo. They all stepped up to destroy these guilds that were there. Very quickly, then came Thomas Malthus, 18th century. Thomas Malthus, you've all heard of progressivism and modernism. All children born beyond what be required to keep up the population to a desired level must necessarily perish. That's Malthus in the 18th century. Those thoughts were picked up by Adolf Hitler for his final solution. They also went to Joseph Stalin, who forbid Catholic charities or Christian charities to do any philanthropy. They wanted none of that. They wanted to eliminate the hordes coming up from the south and the east. And who in our country caught sight of this? None other than Margaret Sanger. 1930. Thinking the cornerstone of her endeavors, her attempts to smuggle contraband contraceptives into our country, her foiled campaign to send obscene materials through the mail, and her advocacy of promiscuous sex and abortion. She swallowed Malthus hook, line, and sinker. In 1930 in our country, the National Council of Churches folded on the right to life. And after they came the Methodists, the Baptists, the United Church of Christ, the United Methodists, the American Baptists, and the largest Lutheran church in America. Very quickly, 1925, abortions legalized in the Soviet Union. 31, Hitler. Sweden, 38. 1906, the National Organization of Women here. The American Mental Association, if you could read their laws 100 years ago, they were totally pro-life. They folded in 1967. During this time, Colorado, California folded. England folded in 1968. And by the end of 1971, nearly 500,000 legal abortions were being done here in the United States. And then in 1973, you all know what happened. The lone Christian voice in America that went against the tidal wave of the neo-pagan revivalism was the Catholic Church. They never bothered. Pope Paul VI issued Humanae Vitae, July 29, 1968, the Church's commitment to the sanctity of life. Thus it appeared that only the Catholic Church remained uncompromisingly pro-life, and as a result, the abortion issue came to be viewed in the public arena as a Catholic issue. The two men who got that done, Bernard Nathanson and Lawrence Slater in New York, and they made the bad guy the Catholic Church. And you can see that because the media bought into it, and that we're still fighting that battle today. So in this short glimpse to our historical past, our country has had three mortal sins: our treatment of our Native Americans, slavery, and abortion. We weren't here for the first two, but we're here for this one. What are some things that we can do better? Meeting with our local reps, even if they're pro-abortion. Their souls not living in God's plan. They need to be spoken to. Last year we took a mother with a Down syndrome 17-year-old child in to meet our local rep, who's very pro-abortion, because we had a Down syndrome bill in Harrisburg. I sat the young man directly opposite the state rep. He'll never forget that meeting. That bill will come up again this year. Letters to the editor in your local paper, national ones. We have to completely be in the public square all the time. I made my living as a mover in the Philadelphia area. And one day my guys called me and said, "Hey, Patrick, you need to get out here. We got a guy that's not ready." So I go out to the house. The guys are packing up. He has to help pack him with the china. So I start helping. There on the kitchen table, the man is sitting, writing a letter to the editor, refuting my letter that's sitting on his kitchen table. So I introduced myself as the author of the letter, and we had a very pleasant conversation. But here, he wasn't going to let anything stop him from getting his ideology into the public square. That's the zeal we have to have. And he did it. And he's still writing letters. I want to say a few words about my pop. Let me see my pop. Here's a little picture of my pop. One of the St. Patrick's Parade got him put the sash on and made him the honorable marcher that year. He passed away we're going to celebrate his 9th year anniversary this January 31st. Pop was an extremely happy soul, and he said the two greatest things in his life is not only being born Irish, but being born Catholic. He said he was the luckiest man in the world. He raised 12 of us. My brother Kevin's here with me today. Sundays were special. Mass, then the Irish Hour on the radio with Pat Stanton, my namesake, with the Clancy brothers and Tommy Macon coming out of the radio. The bacon was always burnt. The eggs were cooked by Pop, and then we'd visit relatives in the afternoon. We used to always go to a place called Penhurst where the medical handicapped children were kept. It's a terrible place, and part of the reason that they disbanded it was the terrible treatment they gave for these handicapped children. Then we'd come home for dinner by Mom. 9 boys. Mom didn't really get to be a good cook until she was in her 80s. And Pop was worse. But we all ate. And everybody got their fill. You just had to get into the line between Kevin and Brendan because they ate the most. So with 9 boys, there's a lot of manly testosterone. So after dinner, we'd go down to the basement, put on the boxing gloves, and we'd have boxing matches with the boys. Then we'd go upstairs, get on the knees, and play knee football, and then say the rosary. And then at the end of the night, we'd saunter up to bed with my mom playing the Casons Go Rolling Along on the piano. But in the late 60s, the clouds of abortion started in New York. And Pop was way ahead of the game. He saw it coming. So he organized locally, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and our own towns. He was the first treasurer of the National Right to Life down here in D.C. He would visit churches, both Catholic and Protestant, toting a little cassette tape around and show slides of the horror of abortion. He started the Pro-Life Coalition of Southeastern Pennsylvania, the PA Pro-Life Federation. He helped found Generation Life, which is a chastity group that is still in existence, going through Philadelphia, New York, Connecticut, and different places. And then when the plane landed in January 22nd, 1973, Pilot by Satan, we picketed. We picketed, we picketed, we picketed. We went after the hospitals and started performing abortion. We got 12 of them to stop in the Philadelphia area. Planned Parenthood then moved in and built their clinics. We start by their chambers. It was a big chain. Late 80s to the 90s, the rescue movement began. We rescued by nonviolent means, sitting in front of the clinics. I shouldn't call them clinics. Nobody gets healed there. But we were all nonviolent, followed by the arrest and then jail. One time a judge ordered my father to go to jail unless he pays the injunction. He violated the injunction at an abortion center. He refused because the money was going to go to the abortion center. So he and 4 people, McMonigal, Roach, McNamara, and Stanton, went to jail. They went to different jails in Pennsylvania, out by Pittsburgh. On the 90th day, the judge released them. They still didn't pay. But they knew that they weren't getting the money because they were not only Irish, they were strong Irish. So, the only problem with Pop's jail, they didn't want to release him. While he was there, he started a Bible study. He started befriending the prisoners. And he'd send word back to us, look, you meet this guy at the train station, get him a job, get him back on his feet. We thought Pop was going to be on a little vacation, but he didn't stop. Orders came back to Jenkintown. So Pop organized rallies. We came down to Washington every year, and then halfway through, Pop said, we got to do these at City Hall. It's Philadelphia. We have 5 abortion centers very close to Philadelphia, or in the city. We have 3 big ones in the city. Then when we come down here, we meet with Arlen Specter, Santorum, Bob Casey Jr. Don't compare me to my father. He's totally waffle as a pro-life. Very sad. So, another thing about my pop. Besides running all these organizations, he was on the street 3 days a week in front of the center. 3 days a week. And I'll never forget at the funeral, I got tapped on the shoulder. He says, your father saved my life 26 years ago. children. Very, very moving. His last week of his life, he was out there 3 times. He never stopped. Yesterday, we went over to the Renaissance Center, and this is one of the beautiful things we saw. 10 women who were former abortion clinic workers. All have been brought out by Abby Johnson and her group, and then there was none. And they said the reason that they left is that they were loved by pro-lifers in front of the clinics. You have to show them love. It was very good for us to hear that. With 40 days for life, we have to be loving to all the people in front of the centers. He said, we're already enemies going into it. This is what the workers said. We've already shut you guys out. The only thing you can do is smile and get to our hearts. And he said, the major reason we all stop is Jesus Christ. Beautiful to hear that. His biggest day was the second Saturday. This was another great thing. One of the women over there worked at Kermit Gosnell's Center in Philadelphia. The second Saturday, my mother used to call it the longest day in history. Pop would be down at 15th and Locust praying for 2 hours. Then they go to the Penn Newman Center for Mass. And then we walk up to Gosnell's Center. You all know about Gosnell, I hope, everybody pretty much. He's serving life in prison. But we would go up there and we'd pray, and I said, wow, nobody going in. We just left the other abortion center. Saturdays is their big day. We found out through the court testimony and the hearings, he did them in the afternoon up till midnight, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. And a young lady who worked for him, who went to jail for 2 years, said what destroyed him was greed. He got into selling pills and drugs out of the same clinic. And they caught him for that. He had a great detective, another Irishman. What's his name, Jerry? His name.
Oh, better not forget.
He'll get it.
Yeah, it'll come to you.
By the way, my friend Jerry McWilliams is out there 6 days a week in front of the clinics, in front of the health center. Anyway, so where was his pop's strength from? Well, I found out when we went back. I only got to Ireland one time. I brought my wife, my mother and my father, and our 9 children. And we spent 18 days in Ireland. The longest trip I ever had, the longest vacation. And we went to Castlebar. And then we went where our grandpa was born. And then we went into the church at Ballintubber. And there was a picture in Ballintubber of the people on their knees in the snow in the church, because the Brits had torn down the roof. And for 250 years, they didn't replace the roof. But that struck me. I said, that's where Pop is. That love of the Lord and our church and daily communion fueled his whole life. I never saw one bad example in his whole life. He was the same. Our happiest moments, before I get to that, one of the greatest things is the 40 Day for Life movement. Now we've taken it to a new level. We do 365 days now. The 2 major clinics in our city are Planned Parenthood at 12th and Locust, and the other one's at 8th and Arch. Between them, we do 11,000 abortions. It's nonstop, 3 or 4 days a week. But we're out there, and every 40 days of life, we average 6 babies saved. Last Lent, we had 16. That campaign is going to start February 22nd. If you're not in a 40 Day for Life, get in it. You have to take an oath to be prayerful and peaceful. And as those ladies pointed out, when you yell at a woman, you're done. You're done. We offer help. Ma'am, is there any way we can help you? We have a crisis pregnancy center right across the street from Planned Parenthood. And they tell us we get 3 to 4 women a week over there. And when Pop, after he would save a baby, he would fix their house, pay their rent, and raise money. It was a fundraiser. The Lord. I didn't want to, we did 40 days up in the leafy town of Warminster. Nice little area. We're down by the street. We did it for 24 hours a day. And then Dr. Monique, who joined us, is my partner 40 Days for Life, says, why aren't you doing this downtown? And when we went on the 40 Day for Life, I said, well, Monique, they got the parking, they got the this, they got to deal with the crime. Philadelphia's a mess right now. So we started it. And then we did it at the other one. So now we said, why aren't we doing this every day? So now we do it every day. Warminster Jerry will remind me, one day, the cops in Philadelphia don't come. If there's an incident, we've got guns, we've got knives, we've got everything. In Warminster, if we step over 2 feet over the line, they call the police. And one day, 4 cars came for me. And Jerry said, you're not in your pop's leg at all. The day they took him away, it was 9 cop cars. So you're just a pipe. Anyway, his happiest moments were surrounded by his family, his children, his grandchildren, singing Irish songs to the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. We had them in Philadelphia, on the Catholic Drexel, the Little Sisters of Poor, and then on St. Patrick's Day, we would gather at the McSweeney Club, named for Terence McSweeney, great man of Cork. And we'd be up there on the stage, and Pop would introduce every song, and then we would sing it. Every now and then we'd have to turn his mic down because he was in a different key all the time. But his face had that energy. And he would tell the story, Joseph Mary Plunkett, and then we begin. As we gather in the chapel here in old Kilmainham jail, I think about these last few days. Will they say we failed from our school days? They have told us we must yearn for liberty. Yet all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Join me. Oh, grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. That's my pop, and I have one last thing. Can I have that picture right there? Does anybody know this man's name? Every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, Mark Hack would relieve me in front of Planned Parenthood. He would take over, and he would pray there. He prayed for 4 hours. I was a piper, I just did 2. And then I'm coming down to Planned Parenthood on a Friday in September, and his wife called me on the phone. He said, they just took my husband. I said, what happened? He said, 20 guys with guns, FBI, Department of Justice just came to my house in Kidderville in Bucks County. He was waving his sticks. And they just took my husband. They arrested him. It took me a couple minutes to think about the horror of this. So I said, don't worry, we've got a couple lawyers on the phone. I went down and prayed at Planned Parenthood, and around 1 o'clock, I said he's going to be free within the hour. So I went over there and I got him. He was taken in handcuffs and then shackled his legs to a table for 4 hours. And he said it was beautiful because I just put Christ in my heart at the Praetorium. So that's what I did it. So next Tuesday, the trial begins. He's,
the federal. This is the federal.
Federal building. The Philadelphia threw it out. They said this is bogus. He did nothing wrong. We have what are called escorts if you go to the abortion centers, and the nastiest one came out to him that day and harassed his 12-year-old child in front of Mark. And Mark walked down to the corner and said, leave my kid alone. Leave him out of this. And I won't say the things that this guy does, but I can just tell you, when I meet him in the morning, I go, good morning, Bruce. F you, Pat. That gives you a little insight into this man's character. But he's very steady. He's been there 30 years. Same thing. Wow. Well, Mark said, just leave my son. He was calling the name. I can't repeat the name. So Mark pushed the guy away. He fell down, did a little act. Ran running into Planned Parenthood, called the police, the whole deal. They threw it out. But the DOJ in Washington, D.C. picked up on it. And he has an 11-year term if he's convicted. $350,000 fine. Now, after this happened, we went on a GoFundMe, we raised $400,000. Thomas More Society, who's down at Renaissance, is taking him, and the best defense lawyer in Philadelphia is taking the case. We just found out yesterday that this is a pro-abortion escort cannot file against the face. So this should be thrown out even before the court starts. But I'm asking all of you to keep Mark and his family. It was a very traumatic scene to have your father dragged out of your house at 6:30 in the morning. So please keep Mark. I'm going to be one of the witnesses. We have 6 witnesses lined up, and just keep them in your prayers. That's it.